draft. Asking that from Todok seems like an impossible task, but I would like to put you on a position of an impossible task as well. Look into JDXL. How can they win versus Dusty? Find me a plan, not a way. Don Jake, you won the game. Might as well be with you.
Blow up the PCs.
It's not an unreasonable plan, I would say. It's not unreasonable, but do you have another one?
Yeah. I think the other plan I would have is, I think like Dan's saying, stable drafts. But then again, I feel like as if it's trying to throw sand into a bank vault at that point. You're trying to fill up an inordinate amount of resources towards both of these teams. One of their strengths is just the flexibility. You know, for Dusty, for example, they're going to flex stuff like the Yasuo. They're going to flex stuff like Taliyah between mid and jungle. You're not getting a stable draft. You're getting a stable draft if they want to let you get a stable draft. Yeah. So I feel like it's wishful thinking from Dan to think that they're going to be able to get that in terms of a top lane matchup. I think they need to utilize their side selection very heavily. This series will be won for XL by side selection and how well they can play out the sides.
Interesting. What about you, Edagon?
I mean, I completely agree. I think saying we want stable drafts into Dusty, who just blind pick Nasus, is a complete pipe dream. It's not happening, right? They just blind pick Nasus with barely any top lane bans. Like, I was so confused by that, and it worked. I don't think it's happening.
And not only that, they have another member on Dusty roster that keeps constantly being a menace to everyone, and I don't think we talked about him at all. So I know you guys prepared something for me, and I'd like to see that.
We most certainly did. We're talking about Linkas here as a player. We're going to have a little segment on this Telestrator here.
Take it away, boys. I'll be waiting.
Understand you guys a little bit more about Linkas and why he's such a pivotal, important member. I'm walking and talking at the same time. I know previously Telestrator segments, my good friend Jamada, he's had some issues with this, knockout bouts with it. He lost. It's my first try here with Eragon. We're going to try and beat it here. This is a play, Dusty versus Nairiki. Set up the play for me, Eragon.
Yeah, so just to provide some context to this clip, there's been some early game shenanigans. Red side, Dusty have actually been invaded, which puts Volibear, Nairiki's jungler's clear, a little bit behind, right? And what I want to show you here is how Dusty used their coordination to actually invade second rotation camps. So the play's actually started, right? What's very likely happening in comms is Linkas on Taliyah is calling for Kerberos to go scout Volibear's topside camps to see where he starts. Now, what Kerberos does is he crashes the second wave to go and check that. This is crucial, right? This is absolutely crucial because now what's going to happen is Dusty know when Volibear's doing his camps, when they're going to die, and when they're going to respawn in 2 minutes, 15 seconds time. And so they can plan for an invade at that time to kill Volibear.
Yeah, and obviously we grew up in the UK, so watching Doctor Who is very important for us. We've skipped forward, we've done a bit of time travel here, set up for this dragon here, and importantly, Eragon, you wanted to set up a point here in terms of their reset timers, didn't you?
So Dusty know that they're on this dragon, and they also know that the camps are going to spawn up. So you see these arrows, they're pinging on the way, so they all have the same game plan. They're all resetting at the exact same time to accomplish this, to invade these second rotation camps. Kerberos recalled Bodashin to TP back top to be strong and get prio on this wave so he can move before the enemy top laner every single time. And also, you could see Stend and Linkas are moving together as unit, 100% confident that Volibear is going to be there with this plan to catch him off guard on his Gromp, which has respawned. Take it away.
Yeah, unfortunately, a bit of a swing and a miss here. They do misplay the play, but the important thing to note here is although the play goes awry, this is something that's set up minutes in advance, as Eragon so beautifully explained here. And I think you wanted to make a general point about this is them before.
Yeah, this is Dusty 4 weeks ago, and they're at this level of coordination. You compare that to a slumping JDXL who are making really weird, uncharacteristic individual misplays. I think the question we have to ask is, have they integrated Morozku well enough to match this level of team play from Dusty? Or will they just lose in the early game?
We kicked the Telestrator's ass.
Thank you so much for that one. As there you go. We now know how they play. Not only on Champion Select with versatility, but also into more of that, the way they play with the macro. There's not a single part of Dusty where you can we have the upper hand as JDXL. Every single map, every single part of the map is being controlled by Dusty when we look into this game, no?
I feel like JDXL are a team whereby, if you talk about peaking early, I didn't want to necessarily describe it like that, but they've had a similar development trajectory that's been stifled and stemmed almost at the root. It's been taken away in the sense of their M&S has been taken away from them. They don't have that anymore. They're having to have these similar developments. The new roots are trying to have to come through and grow and develop. You don't have that same time.
And we don't have time to wait as the first Champion Select of the day is ready and kicking. Let's slap. Come on, man.
I didn't even get to go. Can we do it again?
Did it both. Oh,
it's
no,
started.
now it's starting already. So there you go. First champion select of the day. I hope you guys back at home are ready and share with us on the chat. Who do you believe? Who do you think is going to take this one? Will Dusty be going on with an 11 winning streak, or will it be JDXL for the first time getting a single win with this new mid laner and this new mentality? As I believe the champion select should be on the screen eventually. It's almost there. I was told it was there, but it was almost, it's just Wi-Fi, it's normal.
The problem is, essentially, Kerber Ross has actually had a name change today. He's Kerber Bob Ross today, and he's not quite painted the happy little picture that we're going to be seeing for the draft. So we're just waiting for him to get his titanium white paint.
Can I predict some some bans before they appear?
Okay.
I'm predicting a Yasuo ban from JDXL, Rel ban from Dusty, Talia ban, I was about to say, after the Yasuo, but okay, I guess I didn't get the order right. And potentially LeBlanc and Sivir.
Where's the Lucian? No Lucian?
No, Sivir ban.
Okay, okay, a Sivir ban.
We see the Rel ban coming out. I think for me, the significance of the Talia, strangely enough, for a team like Dusty, although traditionally you see they're going towards the mid lane, having such a high win rate in the mid lane, they play a jungle. Linkus will continually play Talia jungle in a way that a lot of other teams don't.
Yeah, it's a solid flex. And that Twitch ban indicates to me that they maybe want Zeri. This is a very common handshake pick to match the scaling. Zeri, Twitch, Lulu, Zeri, Yumi type deal. So yeah, that's definitely what they're looking for there. And Renata ban denies a lot of kill lanes. So yeah, I think they're going to handshake scaling bot lane. This is very Dusty, putting Denvoxnate on those scaling picks. And look, there's more scaling bans.
Stable picks, stable bans, and they wanted to get a stable pick as well. I would like to remind all of you that Venzer so far has 100% win rate with Lucian and Zeri, and I'm not talking about 1-2 games, I'm talking about 4 to 5 games each. So finally going for something that is stable for them. It seems like the Zeri is one of the greatest call. Let's see if Zen is going to take it away before the first pick. If Zeri comes in, there's a lot of open ones from like Poppy for Dusty.
So for me, I want to see where the priority lies here, because I think this is really going to set a tone in terms of the first pick here. It's not going to be a jungler, it's not going to be a Wukong, it's not going to be a Poppy coming through. It's going to be a Sivir, and I feel like this pick is something we've been seeing more and more of as a stable pick that can, you know, traditionally we think of the Sivir as being a champion that can extend the game 20 minutes longer than it should be going, right? But talk to me a little bit more about the Sivir pick. Why are so many people picking it?
I mean, it's the obvious answer is it just got reworked. I believe actually that Sivir is one of the most broken champions of the game. You see some of these, I believe she got like 3 pentakills or something ridiculous a few days ago. I think she's unbelievably broken. And what you do generally is handshake the scaling, right? So we see Sivir Zeri, now Sivir, Aphelios plus Nautilus.
And I think, to just jut in here, one of the most important things for me in terms of the transition when you talk about Morozku and the way that he plays and the way that he's not necessarily going to be playing for lane, he's going to be playing proactive around the map, is that essentially it puts Venzo in a very different position. He can't play the Draven and Samira stuff like this. He's got to play these net neutral champions that can contest neutral prior for objectives, stuff like the Aphelios, you know, champions like this. So I feel like you're going to see him on champions like Sivir, Aphelios, contesting that neutral prior a lot of the time during this series, which is going to be a lot different in contrast to the beginning of the split.
I think we're slowly seeing a draft shape up, right? So, and now what we're seeing, and we're probably going to see, is 2 AD carries left on an island to farm, whilst Rakan and Nautilus start roaming around to mid lane and then pathing to top side. You see Morozku with that skirmishing and scaling. I think Silas is incredibly broken, but specifically with 2 roaming supports.
Yeah, I feel like going back to that point, that net neutral ability for Venza to operate in lane gives a lot of space for FGG to roam, play around the mid lane, and then outsource pressure towards that, allow Dan to be proactive around the map. That's really what we're going to be seeing.
I love this Akali pick. If they lock this in, I'm really happy, because this also, while it's got a good matchup into Silas, it also disincentivizes the Gwen pick, because Akali is actually, honestly, I heard Broken Blade talking about it. Akali is the only real counter to Gwen right now in side lane as the game goes on. So I really like this because Gwen's still open, and I've been scouting Kryze's solo queue. He plays Gwen, so this is their way of tackling that.
It's another one of those picks that I would like to highlight. You got a massive win rate on the Gwen so far on Summer Split, so that is a big counter for them. That's why the bans are taking a little bit longer. As GP is going to be yet another one. The Gnar is still available, and that's another pick for Kryze, or even Kerberos. They both play this one, and we know Gnar is popping as a champion, so maybe someone else will ban. And Wukong is going to be the next one. We still don't have a jungler for each of them. Who do you believe could be it?
An interesting thing for me is, due to the Hex Flash changes, is Poppy still as high priority? Where does it shift? Because one of the big questions we have in previous weeks, Wukong, nerf. Is it still broke? Is it still as broken? It's still very strong. We heard Diamond Prox in previous weeks talk about it. It's just not the best champion in the game anymore. It's still very strong.
sorry, just to cut you off there, just that Camille ban made me instantly say that's a Gnar. They're looking for Gnar, right? Or Sejuani. I think if you scout Kerberos' OPGG, he's looking for Sejuani a lot. The amount of Sejuani games this man has played in the past like 3 days is like, it's over 20, right? He's absolutely spamming.
4 more.
Right, and they're banning out good Sejuani pairing specifically, right? The Wukong plus Sejuani is a really staple lane. I've just noticed that Jarvan has actually made its way through this entire draft when it's like pick ban in LEC. There's the Gnar.
I feel like, yeah, like you're talking there, and I feel like JDXL, it's going to be a champion that Dan wants to play in terms of that style, the volley bear not being on the... If he's not going to go for the volley bear, it could be something like the Jarvan, like you're saying. Interesting enough for me, one of the points... God, I've completely lost my train of thought in terms of the portal.
Yeah, no worries, I'll take it over. I just wanted to talk about this. The Gnar counters, the go-to Gnar counters in... I'm surprised by the Gnar, the Gangplank ban, because I don't think it's as great. I think Gnar recently actually dropped off a lot in priority. Personally, I think he's a lot weaker because mini Gnar's easier to kill. And this Jax counter pick is really fantastic. What you'll see right now is a lot of Jaxes go Grasp and consistently jump onto the Gnar and bonk, bonk, bonk with Grasp and set up dives.
Don't you dare. I'm going to say this right. Whoa, Elise! Elise jumps into the table. This is so good. Also a shout out for Laure that she loves this champion. So there you go. You got your Elise. But this one, nah. Don't Jake. Tell me more. Tell me more.
I mean, this is great news for homeowners everywhere because we've got a new lease on live. This is wonderful. Seeing this champion, not seen it in many, many years now. I know, for example, I think about pro players that have kind of been staple pickers of this champion. Think about Broxer back in the days. This champion, I can't even comprehend it right now.
It's okay.
It's ridiculous.
Let's just make sense of the draft, right? And then I'll maybe answer the question.
Yeah.
We've got roaming support, which will roam into mid lane to get priority mid lane, into running top, onto a Jax, which is constantly bonking onto the Gnar, getting him low for dives. So you have a whole, everyone goes top side to dive the Gnar consistently. That's how JDXL
I think
went.
one of the interesting things here is you talk about the jungle matchup as well. Elise is a champion that's a lot harder to track because I feel like Graves is locked into a more binary clear path in terms of you can skip a camp or two, but ultimately you're going to be full clearing. Elise can do 3 camp, 2 camp, bot lane, immediately level 2.
Yep.
It can do 4 camps into top gank. And beyond that first clear as well, it's harder and harder to keep a track and get really a game on this. I feel like JDXL are well tasked within this game to really blow it open within the first 10 to 15 minutes and then excel a lead through that point onwards.
Yeah.
If Dusty can ironically keep it stable, they're going to be in a very good position.
Well, let's make the question. Eragon, who's going to win?
If Dusty can make it through the early game, because they have the scaling comp, then that's a cop-out answer. I'm just going to say Dusty.
Dusty, what about you?
Listen, you're talking to the JDXL fan on the street, man. Hopium abound, and Elise is locked in. The Spiderwick Chronicles are about to ascend. JDXL are going to win this.
JDXL? Well, might as well show you all, Twitch chat, who did you vote for? Because we were keeping track of that one on the chat. So let's hear it. Let's see it. There you go. Oh.
It's not looking good, Brev.
I would like to clarify something. I think that JDXL have the better draft, but I think Dusty are just so much better that it's not going to matter.
He knows about the craft, but it's still an 80-20 in favor of Dusty. What can you tell me about this Treble Link and Initialize? Wow.
I am so excited to see Elise.
80-20, man? Are you 80-20 excited?
That's rough. I mean, in fairness, let's be real. Dusty been on a fantastic trajectory. XL are on a 5-loss streak.
Listen, man.
It's rough.
If I'm getting 3 seats for EU Masters, I don't want the odds between the 2 seats we're already setting to be 80-20, okay?
It is our concern. It's something we do want to track, right? Like, I think Don Jay said something very profound, and we both agree with this in the green room about, look, this team at the minute is a month-long project.
Yeah.
They've had a week. And Torok obviously has done a lot with this team before. He's managed to get the team to do some very good things early on in the split. There's a little bit of this start happening again, and we need to see how they do here. The problem is the stakes are a lot higher in some ways. NLC Championship on the line. And a bit lower in others because eyes on EU Masters for this team here as well. And that might end up being the end goal. We just need to see what trajectory they're on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're looking for a win right here, locks you in main stage. Means you don't have to go through these pesky LFL teams. 2 of them actually lurking through these planes of EU Masters. Extremely important, right? Making sure that you are seen at EU Masters for all of these players, especially the dusty ones. And I think we're almost ready to get back in.
That we I hope you're all not arachnophobic, because our first game of the day has got some spice in draft and a spider in the jungle. But we see whether Dan can sling enough webs to make this one a Marvel movie, or whether it'll be an absolute disaster and Dusty begin to run over it.
Funnily enough, when Elise used to be a meta a few seasons ago, it used to be such a one-dimensional playstyle that you would see towards the early stages of the game, right? It would usually be paired up with something like the likes of Renekton. It stuns someone into place, into Cocoon, into tower dives. Something similar that you could potentially do with the Jax, and that's something that Dusty have actually done a lot in the early games. They do pile up in the same bush all together, trying to catch someone off guard. But let's stand a little bit further behind from the drafts, and let's talk a little bit about the teams and how they ended up here, because JDXL and Dusty have had completely different trajectories. We're talking about JDXL, a lot of you know their name from 2021, where they actually had a fantastic run at EU Masters. They got all the way to the finals, lost to Carmichael, who then proceeded to get the back-to-back-to-back, right? After 2021 spring, JDXL have failed to make EU Masters 2 times in a row, and they say initialized third time's the charm, because in the third season of trying, they're finally in.
Yeah, and of course, both times before that, it was Riddle knocking them out in playoffs in a quite alarming and amusing little bit of trivia. But honestly, they've made EU Masters this time around, but there's still the questions, right? This is a team that got into EU Masters. In some ways, it feels like by a technicality, right? By the way a head-to-head worked, their end of split was pretty poor. Obviously, for very expected reasons. You switch out a huge part in your mid lane. Things are getting a bit rough anyway, and there's some room. There's still room to grow. There's still some things to fix. And we need to see exactly what they've managed to do coming into this matchup. I love what they've done with the draft. I'm really excited to see what FGG can get done on the Rakan. The Civ is so strong right now. Down on Elise, a champion I love and main alongside Evelyn. So I'm very excited to see what this top duo can get done from JDXL.
Now, that's something very exciting you just mentioned is what can FGG do here and about his roaming? Because I just want to remind everyone, FGG and Venza were playing for the opposite battleground here. They were playing for Dusty over in spring, and they managed to have a very deep run. They got third in playoffs. Had we have a third seed, FGG and Venza would have already been at EU Masters last spring. But right now they're playing against their ex-team, against their ex-coach. Cries?
Oh, nearly gets the solo. Elise gets the flash out of Curb as he goes towards the Mega. Now remember, Elise, as you can see, pathing towards the top, has got red buff but not taken blue, looking to make sure this dive happens. That ward early will spot this out happening, but Graves is a long way off, and I don't know how easy this will be to respond to. Curb now out of Mega needs to be afraid.
Here's the thing right here. We need to keep track of mid lane priority as well, and I think the main objective for Dan right here is not necessarily to dive and kill Kerberos, it's to deny experience and gold from a player that has traditionally, oh my god, has traditionally put and absorbed so much pressure towards the top side of the map. So look at all this CS right now currently stuck underneath his tower. He might lose the cannon. No, he got the cannon. Okay.
Forces the early reset though, which is not what we wanted to see on the Gnar. Has come back with a refillable potion, which is great news. FGG, level 2 on the roam, looking to be that second jungler. Backlund, of course, took a slightly ugly trade here as Dan is doing what Elises always do, which is turn up in your jungle and be as obnoxious as possible early on.
But look who's coming with. Morosco is already on the run. FGG has roamed all the way to the top side of the map. And Cries, remember the stacked wave that was crashing underneath Kerberos' tower? JDXL have 4 members in Linkus' jungle who's actually playing the Graves. Now, reminder, they mentioned that Elise is a champion that can do buff to Gromp, get that quick level 3, go straight into a dive. Dan has his entire top quadrant of the map still up. What he can do is try to clear that one up, head straight back towards the top side of the map. But early on we said we put our target onto FGG because FGG together with Viking and Dusty, he was literally the shadow of his jungle. He was roaming so much, something that we haven't necessarily seen too much of in the regular season of the NLC in summer. In this particular game, I don't think he has seen what Venza is actually playing in the bot lane. He's been on the map constantly. He's actually found Linkus in the jungle.
Morosco coming over, and of course, Raptors just respawned. Linkus looking to see where they can get in on these. Of course, did have his red buff stolen. Sten's coming over, and that is the level advantage down around as well. But I think these Raptors are probably done for at this point. Dan might get a smite off here, but he's unlikely to be able to claim any of these chickens. Smite away from Linkus, who will take that opportunity. That's always the fear with something like the Elise. Don't farm as quickly, and these kind of invades can hurt.
And that was a level 2 camp as well. It was the second spawn of these wraiths, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So Linkus got a bunch more from that one, and the topside jungle for Dan has still been uncleared. Crash with a flash.
Dan, of course, still has the red because he stole the other one. Will have an opportunity to flash here. Curb, no flash. I think he's hopped already. Dan will decide not to go on in. That's a few attempts and look-ins now that haven't really amounted to too much as this Elise.
Yeah, and FGG is on the roam yet again. Level 5 for Buckland. Does have his flash available, but if Morosco lands a chain right here, there would be a chain of CC coming from FGG. Dan still level 3. They're looking for Buckland.
Stand on the side, though, will make this a 2v3. Flash out of Backland, and that's the end of it.
During all this, Linkus on the Graves. We all know how disgusting Graves is and how quick he is at farming jungle. Right now, Dan is sitting at 22 CS. Linkus is sitting on 34. He's an entire level up at this point, and Dan's topside jungle still at level 1. He has not touched anything but the Gromp that just respawned.
Yeah, there's still that blue buff, still those walls. He really wants to get through and clear that out now. And that will unfortunately mean that nice attempts there with the red buff, but they didn't get to all that much. Now Linkas looking to do what Linkas does on Graves, which is turn in and power farm everything that's left up. The cleaning surface is in. And what do you know? There's a lot of dirt and buffs to pick up.
Yeah, thank you very much for clearing that level 1 blue buff, I guess. But the thing is that here, Linkus is gonna take the second spawn of the Gromp as well. These Graves will be so strong so quickly, and the Elise so far 6 minutes into the game hasn't come into fruition how you wanted to. The top lane dives, the mid lane shenanigans that we've seen. Been a while.
Skirmish on both sides of the map. To flash out of Linkus on the top side of Stend goes in, has now been ignited. Gravitum used there with the binding eclipse, trying to turn this one around. Denvoxne taken semi-low, does now have to force the heal. Turnaround beginning to come through. Venza popped the ghost earlier on. FGG appears to burn Flash and Ignite at some point. Linkus does get out, though, of the other side of the jungle, despite having had popped his Flash as well. And the heist is successful, even if he doesn't get the Gromp.
And looking at the bot lane, let's bring up some stats for the two AD carries, because when all the heat is happening on the other side of the map, then Voxney and Venza have been farming down the bot side. Now, kills at 10, 16 for Venza versus 11 for Denvoxne. I know we make a lot of the meme at Venza dying level 3 and how many deaths he can get into the league, but this guy has one of the highest kill threats as well in the game for JDXL. And Denvoxne, on more of a role of a weak sider, if you will, you can see it from his gold at 10. He barely averages 6 gold more than his opponent.
Yeah, exactly. And as we say, like Venza, like, while we kind of rightly, I think, sometimes criticize some of those level 3 deaths, actually, often those are from being really aggressive in lane, playing that LPL style kind of, I will go in and fight you, and that comes with some risks, and it's burned XL a little bit more now, more regularly, when you have to be a bit more consistent, take up a more consistent role with the changes in the squad. But at least on paper, we know how this guy plays, and we know how he played last playoffs. It was pretty damn phenomenal alongside FGG, and here on the Sivir, on this new pick of the month, we'll see what he can get done.
And talking about the bot lane, I'd like to say that FGG is copying Kiba's homework, but he's not making it too obvious. He presses his B button and he literally roams everywhere on the map. He's been top lane, he's been bot quadrant of Linkus' jungle, he's been mid lane very consistently, where Stand is as well. Might be looking for the 2 versus 2. Both supports extremely underleveled due to all the roams that we've been seeing, and a level 6 Graves shows up.
Big hook, but of course Dan still has both the flash and the repel, so won't come to too much at this point, and Dan traded out a lot of that farm as we saw earlier on, has yet to really make too much of it, but now with the Herald spawning, it might be an opportunity to use some of these early spikes.
And I'd say, looking around the map, we can all agree that there's a bunch of scaling for JDXL. The Jax, the Silas, the Sivir, looking on the other side, the Graves, the Akali, the Aphelios, all.
Gets a big double knock-up with the Grand Entrance, but Linkus coming over. This could be a lot of turnaround damage. Venza's here trying to turn this one around best he can. Linkus gonna keep stepping forwards, but won't get too much done. Flash out a Mirage Q and nothing else, really.
So the point I was trying to make is the fact that the only thing that doesn't scale very well into the late game is that picture-in-picture champion, and it is Elise, piloted by Dan. The reason this champion is usually picked is so he can snowball another champion further into the late game in the very early stages. And that, for me, would have most likely been the Jax over on the top side of the map. Now, all this time and resources spent to take that Rift Herald, you would usually get 2 to 3 tire platings. Then Voxne has naturally taken these himself without a Rift Herald needed, without time spent on the top side of the map, by just shoving in his wave, taking these resources for himself, and playing that Aphelios. Now, of course, the argument can be made that Aphelios and Sivir are pretty similar. They both can hypercarry really well into the late game, but again, my only worry right here is that Elise has not really achieved much in the early.
However, does now have the Herald and has got room to make a play. You throw down the Herald, and Elise, notoriously one of the best tower diving champions out there because of her ability to both throw CC, use the flash, use the repel to drop or gain aggro as needed. And I need to see what Dan gets done with this Herald, because you're right, so far, not a huge amount of success. Has now got the tools, however, to try and make a really aggressive play with that Herald infantry.
He has been spotted moving towards the top side of the map. You see that FGG is also following suit, going towards the top side of the map. And the sentiment has been the same from the very beginning. Try to get this tower dive stop, try to deprive Kerberos off of experience and gold. It worked in the early game. Christ is about 10 to 15 CS up, but Kerberos is mainly there for these huge Mega Nars in the early game, setting up his team for success. Doesn't necessarily have to snowball. He managed to stay barely even. He'll be fine in team fights.
Also, just want to quickly eye on Linkus here as well, who's decided that he wants to take both a knife and a gun to a gunfight because he's filled his inventory with every sword and dirk available to power up his shotgun. Knows exactly what he's after, which is early AD as fast as he can get it.
Isn't that what Gangplank does?
Yeah, kind of semi-similarly.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, as it stands, Dusty, as was said on the desk call, look, they are really happy they can keep things stable early, and thus far they have managed to do so. We've asked JDXL whether they can make something happen sooner or later, and feel like they've kind of got a minute or so to make it happen, or we are getting nervous.
I'll give you the #1 most visual and obvious improvement on JDXL.
Yes.
Venza has not died.
He has not, that's very true. The meme was unfortunately realistic and has survived now to level 8 with no problems. In fact, they're going to come down bot side and force Denvoxer to use the heal. Just have the flash, the repel forwards, force a flash straight out of Denvoxer as well with the flash cocoon.
But Standy's around, and if you look at the bot side, River Buckland is on his way as well. Moscow will have his TP up and available really soon. He will be able to TP into friendly towers only, but all in all, trading flash for both summoners for Voxne is quite worth it right there. You give a lot more gold to your Severe as well. Unfortunately for Price, Counter-Strike will not land onto Kerberos for the trade, but all in all in the bot lane, it's a pretty positive trade for Venza. You see Venza has got the call in his inventory as well, has almost been able to cash the money off the item, getting a bunch of tower platings, and very importantly, if we look, 3 minutes 40, at this point that Voxne will not have his flash available. That could be a window that XL can abuse to try and take that team fighting into that Aphelios.
Put a pin in that, we'll come back to it as those fights come up. I agree, that is a very valid point to keep our eyes on. Of course, there's Aphelios. Doesn't have the greatest amount of a protection here. He's got the hopes of a Gnar, Mega Gnar, and a Nauta to try and survive against what could be quite a lot of onslaught. But Dan is continuing to try and make plays happen. Thus far, no one has died. This might be an opportunity, though. Cocoon crunched away from, repel forwards, gets a slow with the chilling smite. I'm not sure they're going to be able to get too much more. We'll back step away from the Mega Gnar, but once again, no kills secured. It's just driving the Gnar out of lane.
This is starting to become worrying right here. Linkus' CS difference keeps growing and growing. 30 gold in the lead right here. He's gonna be able to take that red buff as well for himself. Raise that spawning. And whilst JDXL are putting all their resources towards the top side of the map, then Voxne is being chilling bot lane, taking all the waves, forcing Venza off his tower. Venza right here, one of the most respectable we've seen him towards the pressure he's receiving in a very long time. Actually not pushing underneath his tower, knowing that he's most likely could get dived towards the bot side of the map, but the downside to that is that then Voxne has been cashing in on all the tower platings.
The moment you praised him, the caster curse is in. Throws down a lot of damage with Crescendum Severum, but remember, no flash, no heal. Gale forces away, getting healing with the Severum ulti, but it's just not enough. First blood to Dan's Elise. They do finally shut down this AD carry, who was a little aggressive in shoving for that first turret.
And finally, we get first blood 13
I know, right?
minutes in.
Listen, when Venza is in the game, waiting 13 minutes to get a first blood is absolutely unacceptable. But all jokes aside, actually, if you look towards the bot side of the map, Dusty have tried so much with their vision, if we can highlight it towards the bot quadrant. There's triple wards right there. As you can see, thank you so much, observers. Control wards. They're making sure that no matter where XL come from, then Voxne will have vision on them. This time they actually managed to dodge that and hunt him down. And actually, having the Elise on the board is very important, because if you look at the inventories, there's no items on the Elise, there's just boots, and Eclipse has already been completed for Linkus.
Yeah, he is up about 50 CS at this point. That was the fear. We know what Elise is doing, which is not farming. It's trying to make ganks. Only one really successful at this point, but it is an important one. You're right. There was one path of vision where you had to skirt around the absolute bottom of mid lane, straight across the top side of the jungle, and then get towards the bot lane. Voxne thought he was safe. He was very much not, and that was some really good bits of, Metal Gear Solid there in the cardboard box, try and get towards that bot lane.
Again, JDXL down together with FTG trying to get that gank towards the bot side of the map. There is no flash on their Voxne, so he's naturally the target for the later on ganks to come, but their vision has been absolutely stellar towards the bot side of the map. And what does that do? That means that Dan is wasting time. Linkus keeps farming his entire level up. Price
Flash stun, gets the Grandmaster's might, but he won't quite get it with the auto reset. Curb has to flash up, but it's a flash for flash trade. Cry's honestly been doing very well in that matchup.
Really importantly though, Kerberos does not have his teleport up and available. He just lost his flash. Cry's does has his. That means that he has an entire Sun Wanderer in his inventory. He can TP towards that fight that's going to be breaking out in about 25 seconds for the next Dragon. And JDXL will most likely have the numbers advantage. As you'll see, not Trinity Force completed yet for Kerberos, but he's going to be walking towards the bottom of the map, meaning that all of these waves that we're seeing now on the top tower is dying. No one's soaking up the experience, no one's soaking up the gold. One level up for Cries. He needs to be the difference maker in these fights.
Goes back, buys a control ward and some brown bags to stick on his feet. Will now have the ability to teleport in should they choose to fight. JDXL are around and about, but they don't really have any control or vision in the river. It's just going to disappear. There he goes, down and out. They decide against going for a really aggressive contest, and they'll just trade the 2 early dragons for now.
Yeah, and I think JDXL should technically look for that second Rift Herald, trying to open up that mid lane. Usually, when there is anything but a strong wave clearer in the mid lane, you want to be using that Rift Herald to open up mid as fast as possible, because then it's very difficult for melee champions like Backland or the Akali to overextend into the mid lane, and it also allows a lot of pick potential when you have an Elise. On the other hand, for Dusty, they're more than happy to stick their fillers in that mid lane, have him perma-shove in these waves, whilst JDXL are doing the second Herald.
Quick, taking that pen out of the flash on Voxnay, as it has now come back up. They decided not to fight on that one, so worth keeping an eye on that one being back up and available. And as it stands, Dusty staying just ahead in goal, actually, which is obviously not what you necessarily want to see when you're running the Elise early on, but you scale pretty well with the Sivir, with the Jax, with your Silas. When you see what they can get done with that Herald, you ask for the mid lane to go down. We'll see whether JDXL can group and make that happen.
Talking about grouping,
keep things stable. What have you got?
4 members of Dusty, and they started very, very fast moving towards the top side of the map to try, of course, Cries, to try and stop Cries from sieging that tower. And so far, it has been Kerberos. Of course, the bot lane tower was literally 1 HP, but he was able to transition towards the bot side of the map. I think he had to walk all the way from base to take that one down. And now they've put Akali, that has a rocket belt that is pretty strong, level 11 to level 11, into that Jax. Talking about into the Jax, Jax has not been alone pretty much the entirety of this game. Dan and FTG this time are gonna go completely unspotted here. There are no wards, so if Cries manages to get that stun...
Control, they're gonna get a cocoon afterwards into the charm afterwards, nowhere to go, trying to extricate themselves, and does manage to do it with the shuriken flip. And the ultimate didn't have enough vision.
Didn't have enough vision, but Akali is extremely slippery, and Venza has stayed in a very vulnerable position yet again. He has his flash, he has his ghost, he has his shield, he has to flash over the wall.
Has to play for best he can, get over the wall, but a collateral damage won't quite be enough. Binding Eclipse, not quite there. Venza survives on 38 HP.
Venza blows both his summoners, but so did Stend and Linkas, and JDXL are looking. Rosk on the flank.
Look for it, Kerber with Meganar makes this a dangerous position to come fighting in, and both ganks don't quite pay out, though JDXL have to pay a higher fine in summoners.
This is such a classic game 1 of a best-of series. Both teams have the tools to play aggressive if they want to. Wait,
Ackland's super low. He's got a stolen depth charge. So much damage. Clever little play. Can't quite make it work. Waiting for it. Tries to get away. Surely has it flash. Chain Lash misses. But what about the follow-up afterwards? Lands at the ultimate. Not quite enough. 28 HP. They can't keep getting away with it.
Backland, the master of deception right there. Whether he's on LeBlanc or not, waits until the last second to use his flash, tricks Mrosku, plays that 1v1 to perfection to try and get away alive. And also Backland, what a story, what a development, what a glow up it has been for him from spring all the way to summer. From being one of our mid laners in the middle of the pack, I would say, in spring, to potentially solidifying themselves to #1, along with Tempt, towards that top of the leaderboard. KDA, CS per minute, death percentage very low. This guy is somebody who plays a lot of assassins, having his death percentage that low is absolutely massive while pulling insane amounts of damage.
Oh, never mind about damage, we've got a flash cocoon into the charm, and FGG gets a hold of Stend. Turnaround from Voxnay is decent, but Dan managing to start landing some of these more important picks. Stolen Gnar ultimate won't come to fruition, as Kerberos will use his own version to escape from under the tower.
I think it's very clever if Morosco actually keeps the Gnar available for himself, because Linkas is lurking around. Linkas is slowly but surely going for that flame horizon, if you will.
He's very close to it.
Levels up onto the Elise, and they might actually try to pull the dive. Remember the Gnar onto Morosco's Silas. Will he even be able to use it?
Lands it onto, oh my god, never mind. Collateral damage just takes down Morosco. Is like exactly that. He was an afterthought there.
And I'm trying. I'm really trying to see what the Elise have achieved in the early game. And I think that the pure victor out here is Linkas on that Graves. He's not been challenged at all in his jungle. He's not been pushed out. If anything, he's been gifted extra quadrants because that Elise is consistently trying to make plays on the map.
Yeah.
And he allows for the pressure inside the jungle. Now, of course, Dan has to use that Rift Trail in the mid lane. I don't even know if it's going to crash because Linkas is there, Stand is there, and then Voxne. There's 4 members. If you look on your left side, Kerberos is actually flanking. Doesn't have the Mega now, but he's very close.
Looks like they will just about be able to get the charge off, so there it goes. But they won't be able to secure anything like the tower. Now it's a 3v5 in the mid lane. The JDXL are going to back away from it. Dragon is spawned, and they want to try and fight, but they just don't have control of the river. With Meganar coming up, this is a very dangerous choke point to approach.
And I'm not sure how long Morosco will have that Nafo, because remember, he picked it up all the way from top lane. It's actually run out. He doesn't have an ultimate right now, and JDXL want to front-to-back team fight for that Dragon, which is going to be so point for Dusty.
Shurelia's popped by FGG. Still have the on the hunt, though, so movement speed still available.
Kerberos
Gets into the backside, doesn't get as much done as he wants. Turn around, the down is going to go through, but the Dragon dies. It will be the top laner for Dragon Trade. In goes Kreis, he's got himself a counter strike, but can't get too much more. Back into the backside, murders Dan, trying to escape, does so with a perfect execution. Shut down, though, by Kreis, who does go hopping in, but now he's in the middle of 3 himself. What about Fenza, though? Throwing so many shurikens out. He's doing a lot of work for Denvox, trying to trade out best he can. Link has fallen, though, means your jungler with all of that gold is going to fall. Kreis steps forwards, has a counter strike, and JDXL get everybody from Dusty. A triple kill to the Jax.
And who would have expected JDXL? They said needed a month. They take a week off, they prepare, and they come in with an ace. Dusty gets away with the Dragon, XL gets away with everything. They're going to get to extend the vision, the bot quadrant. They're going to take that mid lane tower, which we said how important it is. And let's look at this again, because Kerberos has a fantastic idea. He sees Dan, he sees Venza, he sees 2 very vulnerable members, and the second he dives in, everything from his gets dodged. The Meganar doesn't quite land, and then Kreis, the guy, the member that JDXL were trying to feed into the early game, jumps into the backline, creates room between the carries of JDXL and Dusty's carries. And as you'll see, as a whole unit, JDXL seems to have played this so well. They were peeling back all together, they were moving in back all together. And let's see, oh!
We're back on. Dusty trying to turn around some of these trades, but the teleport's coming through. Stend being left out to dry. The Nautilus has got a few holes in that diver's suit, but gets out alive on 27 HP. How many times have we seen these, like, 2-digit numbers of rivals? Backlund gets stunned up, but does have a shroud. Will not be able to be punished off. Linkus is here now. Remember, still a scary Graves, blown up last fight, but could definitely output the damage. And the problem is, yes, you managed to get yourself a team fight, but all it does is even up the gold. You're still down the soul point. ADXL needs to do more.
3, 0, and 2. Frozen Heart completed. Graves, Akali, Na, Aphelios. It affects all 4 of these champions with 1 item from Price. Roscoe has been caught on the top side of the map. He has to be coming in.
Teleport's coming through, but here comes the rest of Dusty. Flashes away from the collateral damage. I apologize. Morosco will survive, but it comes at the cost of a teleport and a flash. Critical tools when you've got yourself an Infernal Dragon, which will be soul point for Dusty in 2.5 minutes.
Absolutely, and again, I'd like to see, because we didn't have time, the recipient of the kills and the gold. Because if you look, that Sivir has 2.5 items, almost 3. That Infinity Edge is almost completely full. The set of Venza on the other hand side. Then Voxne, talking about Voxne, never mind that, because Kreis is a little bit too deep.
Yes, indeed. Kreis got that triple kill earlier. He's doing very well. And JDXL looking to continue shoving this one in. Dodges the Dredge line with the repel, and now Stend is in deep.
A 4v5.
And no paddle to get himself out of that one.
That's a 4v5.
They're going to try and play it out best they can. Kreis throws down the counter-strike, will hop away. But remember, there's still some ability to try and run after them, but they get the kill, they get out, they can go back to the turret, and JDXL keep getting wins here.
And look at the macro, look at mid lane. JDXL are pulling a 4v5 towards the top side of the map, knowing that Dusty does not have crucial ultimates to hit back, whilst Roscoe is hitting that mid lane tower, pushing in that wave constantly. Then Voxne does have the Moonlight Vigil.
We'll get that and can use the Binding Eclipse here to root him in place. Then Voxne coming over with Severum and Infernum. Linkus looking to hunt him as well. We'll have a blast code. Gets over, and Roscoe is now on the run, on the retreat. Flash forward from Linkus to start getting down those auto attacks. End of the line ensures a death for the JDXL mid laner.
Yeah, and so far I feel like Roscoe has been used as a bait on the other side of the map for JDXL to try and act as a 4-man unit. But the Silas here is such an important and pivotal part of your team fighting. You steal an R ult, you steal an Akali ult, you steal a Nautilus ult. You can pin people down. You can be so slippery with the Akali ult as well. He's so important for the team fights to come, and so far, Buckland has had his number, whether it is in team fights, whether it is on a side lane. Buckland has always been looking and searching for that Silas to try and take him off the map, and that's very important when you play an Akali. When you are looking in the Akali, you're looking for these important squishy members on the opponent team, and you take them down in team fights.
And it's also really critical to note that JDXL have got themselves the win condition now. They've got this Jax online. They've got Sivir to 3 items. Got both a team fight and a split push option, even if, honestly, the mid jungle hasn't had the games they were hoping for on this Silas and the Elise so far. Of course, Dusty got themselves at Soul Point. That's a Hex Soul as well. They're hardly out of this game. Look at the Graves, for crying out loud. It is pretty much at that Flame Horizon. In fact, as I speak about it, there it is.
There it is.
So they've definitely not exactly out of this game. But from what felt like XL not getting anything done, they've got themselves Elise in this game.
And the funniest thing that always happens when a team has 3 dragons and they're fighting for Soul. Oh, hold on.
Maybe we don't have time because Dan flashes for the cocoon and they get the pick. That's a dead AD carry, 3rd death of the game for the Aphelios.
I was about to say, when you've got 3 dragons, you can say, screw Soul. We're going to play for the Baron, push our waves, and then take Soul in the next 5 minutes because we're going to be stronger by pushing in these waves with Baron, maybe get a few more towers, a few more vision wards down. But right now, your tool for taking this Baron so quickly, if your Dusty has gone down, JDXL find the pick right there, then Voxnet just about did not have his flash off of cooldown. Really nice timings right there from JDXL, and Dusty are still keeping their win condition. They have the 3 dragons. They can very quickly delete that Baron off the map. So one wrong move from JDXL, 1 member falling down, could mean the end of the series.
What was a right move
Not a game,
there?
not series.
Okay, not that I was going to say, well, that was quick. And so we're doing best of ones now for playoffs.
Sorry,
Everything
man.
on one game.
Listen. I have made a bet about a,
have you?
A particular fast food chain.
Another one?
With Ashram, yeah.
Have you won one of those bets yet?
No.
What was the
Listen,
bet,
I'm trying,
Georgia?
I'm
So
trying.
just so I know exactly what to vote against.
It's F for effort for me, okay? I'm putting in the effort, but I'm getting an F every time.
All right. Finish the bet. I will quickly point out that Anathema's changed 3rd on the Jax. Interesting choice. Bit more of a team fight option. Lock down the AD carry, probably.
I'm just gonna guess.
But
this Anathema's change has gone on to the Akali.
Surely.
Having the frozen heart right there and having the extra armor, you
can see
definitely
that.
want to be negating the only other profile of damage coming through. So the Anathema's change that you're linked onto the Akali instantly makes a lot of sense. That means that when Kryze goes in, he's pretty much invincible against both.
that's a really smart call and immediately proved true. Nice little bit of sleuthing there from my Colocaster, and we're going to see some contest for this Baron Vision, and JDXL, to be a little wary of the fact that Dusty are here in force. But Dan, still no flash. We'll have the repel, of course, but...
Usually, when you have a split pusher, looking on the map and you're like, okay, where are wards that could potentially affect the fight, where Kryze or whichever Kryze can TP to for potentially a flank or fight in the backline? Right now, XL don't really have any. They've got a control ward over in the top lane in a bush, but that will be a way long way away from the fight. So by the time Kryze is there, somebody would have most likely already died or somebody's down. Now, talking about fast Barons, XL might even want to take the 50-50 or even turn the fight. Kerberos could be pulling his TP. He does have the Mega Knight currently.
It's not DPS weapons with Voxney, but it is big AoE ones. Gravitum Infernum, see whether they can make something happen with the more leverageless Kryze on the side with the counter-strike, force the flange out of stand. He'll leap strike over, but he's very deep. Where are the rest of Dusty's Linkers? Taken so low, this fed Graves will live up to his namesake. He's just dead to right. Kryze following Voxney. He's got nowhere to go. Just so much damage, completely unstoppable, implacable, a Terminator. As Backlund at least deletes the AD carry, will force the Zhonya's out of down, but cannot lock down the kill.
He can come back in. He has the R2 onto his Akali, but he's not going to quite pull the trigger. JDXL, that's what they wanted, right? They didn't necessarily want to take the Baron, which they can very quickly. Elise, notoriously known for taking neutral objectives so quickly, especially with the attack speed through the spiders, the AP damage that she does, together with the CV. You can bend down that HP bar of the purple one really quickly, but the objective right here was to pull Kerber's TP, or even make a pick, and they actually managed to get both. Kerberos TPs into the fight, they kill Linkers, they'll kill Voxnet. I feel bad for Voxnet right here.
He tried so hard.
As he's underneath his tower, he's really trying, and he's just playing against one Jax. But again, that one Jax
was the subject that JDXL wanted to focus in the early game, depriving Kerberos of a farm, giving it all over to Cries, and hoping that later on Cries was going to be this machine that would push away a carry from Dusty. And so far, he has achieved that.
Absolutely has, and this is a game, honestly, where after the early game was very quiet, I got very nervous, as now we're looking at a Jax who is 5-0-4, got a triple kill in the first team fight.
That's scary to
A
say.
lot of the things that on paper should have meant, oh dear, JDXL are in trouble here, haven't come to fruition. Honestly, credit to Dan for playing out these mid-game picks on the Elise, following up on what both Cries and FGG have started up, and now they're continuing making Dusty's life very difficult. Yes, there's a massive amount of gold in this Graves inventory, but he's died a few bits as well.
Really quickly, I'd like to point out the difference between the 280 carries, because Venzer is 2,000 gold ahead, and Linkas actually had his number right there. They really want him dead. Slowly but surely, under the radar, Venza has been picking up CS.
He has.
Been picking up levels. He has been picking up these items, and he's now sitting one level above than Voxne, who's one of the main carries for the side of Dusty. So, coming team fights to come, we're looking at Backland, trying to find the targets. Can he assassinate Venza? Can he take him out the picture? Because this Sivir has been a big problem for Dusty.
Absolutely has, and we've seen exactly what Sivir can do. There was, on the Friday, there were 3 pentakills in 24 hours in 3 different leagues. It also broke the longest loss streak in League of Legends history as Voxne gets knocked up and knocked down, and this might be ending the loss streak for XL, but they already lose their support. Venza has to go on, but now Backland's in danger. Already, though, they've won the fight so far, 2 for none, but what can Cries get done? He's in the middle of everybody, kills off the Akali, but not at the cost of anything else as he dies as well. Brodsky has to run out, and Dan and XL must retreat, losing 3 for just the Akali. Backland pulls some magic out.
JDXL overreached right there, and Dusty cut their hands straight off.
That
This is going to be soul for Dusty as well. The Dragon has just come up, and XL had no business picking up fights like this with 2 huge objectives on the map, giving Hextech Soul over to Dusty. I'd say Dusty are sitting pretty comfortable right now, and as we'll see this again, I think that flash is right here, and all that Voxne has to do is just gale force away. Then FTG goes too deep without any follow-up from his team. Cries TP's too late. Venzer's too late on his hourglass. He's lost 2 bunch of HP story the stopwatch, and Backland gets in and gets out. He's the only one who's gonna pay with his HP Baron. Right here, you'll see that not only the Hextech Soul is gonna go to Dusty's way, he's also gonna be the Baron. Cries?
Oh no, he's been spotted as well. This Jax is not even there, because of course it's Mirage in there, who dies as well. His 4th death of the game, and from a game that felt like JDXL has suddenly gained command. They lose Soul, they lose Baron, they lose members, and Dusty now in a very deadly position as Voxne hits his 3rd item, and this game right back in Dusty's hands.
Also, real quickly, if we look at the level discrepancies, Cries was ahead. Kerberos sitting level 17 versus level 16 of Cries' Jax. This is the Jax that needs to be shining in these teamfights, and Kerberos has managed to get an entire level up on him. 2 levels deficit for Dan in the jungle as well. Linkas has been perma-farming with his Graves. He's been absolute nuisance 4-2 and 4. He has a bounty to his name. Does so much damage onto the champion, and right now the Elise is pretty much a stun bot. It's a worse iteration of an Udyr right here in Isolation, which I never thought I would be saying this for a champion, but that is the case. The only saving grace right here for JDXL is that they have Sivir, and Sivir perma-wave clears so easily, which means that even with the Baron, Dusty might find a little bit of a difficulty trying to shove in these waves underneath the towers. What Dusty really need to do right here is try to focus on 2 lanes of pushing, which means that Sivir can only be present in one, and then you push the other one where she's not there.
And of course, Linkas on this Graves at 4 items does a fair amount of his own shoving at this point, so potentially just send him up against the Sivir and trade out the wave clear while this kind of happens in another lane, right? They get another one, they're going to try and rotate round towards this mid lane to secure another tier 2 as Kerberos shoves in the wave in the bot lane, and someone from JDXL will have to respond to that. Dan and FGG around the corner, maybe looking for another pick opportunity, but the last one went so very poorly. They've got to be so afraid. Venza, 4 items, GA in inventory. Be hard to pick off, but even so, you can't be too disrespectful as Backland and the rest of Dusty begin to group in mid lane, warding off this Jax on the side.
And Dusty are trying to find ways to open up the map, and they're doing this flawlessly. They keep focusing and targeting the lane where Sivir is not in. Venza was bot lane, they were pushing mid. Venza was mid, they were pushing top. Now this time, the bot lane wave had already been pushed up by Kerberos. Kerberos is gonna go mini, so maybe that's the chance for JDXL to maybe try to find an opening. but Cries on the side cannot quite find the angle.
And on the hunt was Pop, but a slow from the Hexol negates a lot of that. They get to walk back out. And Dusty, off one little team fight, suddenly take command of the entire game. The cost was two crazy important objectives, and JDXL now have to play smoke and mirrors and try and find some ways back into this. In fact, objective bounties have spawned now. They are that far behind in a lot of ways.
Yeah, 4,000 gold, the deficit right here, the difference right here between the two teams. And right now, it doesn't necessarily mean much, because if you look at the carries, they both have 4 items, almost 4th item for Voxney as well. And we're gonna be looking at Voxney, at Venza, how long can they stay alive in these team fights to put down the damage? Does Voxney have the right guns in this iteration? He does. He does have the Infernum for a big Moonlight Vigil to try and hit that huge AoE. And Hourglasses, Stopwatches, Guardian Angels are gonna come in clutch. 1 Hourglass, 2, 3, 4 for the side of JDXL, including FGG, 1 Guardian Angel for Venza. On the other side, we only have Stasis for the 2 carries, Buckland and Voxney. How quick the reflexes will be right here might actually determine how the next teamfight will go, because we're almost 40 minutes in. The death timers are extremely large. In 2 minutes, there's Elder Dragon, which means that whoever wins that teamfight ends up winning the game.
Fnatic would be proud. It's a death bush indeed. Cries though, gets onto the backline, gets a stun onto 2. What can JDXL get done though? Is over the wall comes Linkast, doing a lot of damage. Backland to the backside though, gets a lot of damage down. Resurrecting though is Voxney. Backland gets the Elise, now trying to retreat out. My god, he's in a 1v3 and he murders everybody. Backland goes golden, will try and trade out Mrozki, who will at least trade it back. But it's still only member who dies, as Dusty claim every other JDXL member, and they will look to claim game 1.
Buckland absolutely danced on the corpses of JDXL right there. No point click CC to stop him. No one to stop Dusty. 1 team fight is all they took. 1 team fight was all they needed to make that a 1-0 to their favor.
The emotes come out. Game over indeed. Dusty, it was a very long and arduous fight, but they are still the victors here in game 1.
I'd say again, this is a very classic case of game 1 in a best of series. Both teams are testing the water. You know, JDXL had an entire week. Maybe Dusty underestimated what they could bring into the game. And to be quite frank, my expectations were met on what I was expecting from the JDXL, even maybe heightened a little bit, because they've put in the fight. We saw a bunch of roams from FGG, but again, at the end of the day, we sort of took the crown of team fighting from Bifrost and we like slotted it back onto Dusty.
There you go, Dusty.
Their team fighting is always stellar, and we mentioned it. You make 1 wrong move, and Dusty, with this front-to-back team fighting composition, are going to punish you.
1 fight goes wrong and suddenly Soul and Baron are yours, and Dusty come out the victors. But to break it down, we have an analyst desk, so we'll throw it over to them.
Thank you so much, and there you go. We thought something was happening in favor of JDXL, but lo and behold, it was not like that. I know those faces. I know those faces. We need to look into what happened during this game, because we did get to see the Elise early game. We did get to see what the Spider should have brought, but didn't. And this is the key word for everyone. We need to look into that specific replay. Let's just kick it off. That's a lot to talk about. Elise should have popped up on the early game.
Listen, there are key windows in games. Sometimes you can use the windows and look through them. You know, eyes of perception, windows to the soul. Dan chose to jump out of the window instead. You see, he's just time and time again, we talk about playing towards his top side. He's not utilizing his flash. It's like he's saving his flash for the next game, almost. And they weren't able to break open the game. It's what you have to do with Elise. You have to get that early gank off. And it just felt as if he wasn't taking his punches when he needed to.
You agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. So the main point I had was I feel really bad for Cries, right? I think Cries completely outperformed Kerberos and gave Dan every single thing he needed to accomplish the win condition of the team comp. He kept getting Kerberos lower, forcing that recall, forcing on his tower was being very low. All Elise needed to do was press Flash and Cocoon. He was in range. He could have done that. But for some reason, maybe it was jitters, teething issues, getting into the best of 5 series. Dan didn't want to commit to it.
We were watching the game, and all of us were talking about the idea that JDXL brought in an interesting comp. It worked. They had the early, they had the late game. They just needed to...
Bridge.
Yeah. They needed the bridge. It was not constructed throughout this game, and then we started talking about if Dusty are allowed to go into mid-late game, things are not going smooth for them. But then we do get to see a specific play from JDXL where we thought maybe it could happen.
Yeah, so here, the second point. You talk about Kerberos in this game getting absolutely kind of... Cry's putting a shift against him. This is Kerber Bob Ross at his finest here. Happy little accident happens when they engage here. He gets taken out, and this fight ends up going the way of JDXL. You think as if, although not taking those windows, they're giving a second chance in this game. Cry's really pops off. And from this point onwards, because they get the clean ace, despite facing down the sole point, now Cry's is in a position whereby no one can really contest him in the side lane. And now you start to think JDXL actually have a chance in this game, despite not taking their advantages in the early game.
Yeah, I think like we were talking in the green room, we were saying this game's over. Nobody can deal with Cries. He has Frozen Heart, Anathemas for Akali, and Divine Thunder. He is so strong, and he counters the Fed members of Dusty, you know, the Graves. How can he kill when he has Counter-Strike? He can't. But then they throw it all away in the late game team fights, and I am so sad for Cries once again. I'll keep saying.
So you want to see that late game fight. Yes. Let's show everybody. Might as well just digest into this. FGG goes way over what his team could follow.
Yeah, Fs and GGs from FGG there. It's just a little bit overzealous. I feel like the game was in your hands. You can slow it down a little bit now. You've got Venza just absolutely obliterating CS lines, keeping the game going longer. It was a point we brought up how you can make this game go long if you want to, but unfortunately their game is cut short by a kind of an untimely engage. That means that the soul goes their way, and from that point onwards, you can't really do anything against the Hextech.
And at this point, we just digested what to us is the line. You have the Elise, you should start using it. You didn't start using it, you still get the mid game. You go to the late game, and backline did backline things. And this is what I want to bring into the table right now. I need you to tell me, is this the defining game for the cities? We were talking about mentality on the first game and how important it was.
I definitely think this could be a defining game for the series. I think this is such a mental heartbreaker, right? You really were set up for success this game. You had a decent draft. I actually really liked Excel's draft. I think you had ways to win late game and early game. I think they accomplished a lot of that except for on Dan's part. I think Cries might be mental shot. I think Dan might be mental shot because he's frustrated that he didn't accomplish what he should have done, even though he had the opportunity to. Yeah, I definitely think this might just be a setup for like domino effect. You know what I mean? It could be 3-0.
It's one of those games where you have the opportunity to take it. You need it because you are currently going on a 6 losing streak right now, and you lose that 1. How hard is it?
A win feels so good at that point, but I feel like for me, a point I want to highlight is not even just about XL in this game, it's also for Dusty. For me, I think you need to highlight both of these teams did not look good in this game for me. I feel like Dusty, although they can go back to kind of what essentially happened at this point, they had the game, they threw it away, and then they luckily were gratuitously granted it back. You're not going to get that at better teams against the EU Masters, and being our forerunner in terms of that representative, I want to see Dusty get their act together, sort it out. We need to see a better performance, even if this ends up being a 3-0 because it's giving a definitive game. We need to see better games from them.
I wanted to say the exact same thing. You can't always come back if you're against a really good team who actually knows how to close out, right? At EU Masters, you can't go 200 HP on Kerberos in a matchup where you're against a jungler pathing topside with a very clear dive win condition. You won't be allowed these windows team fight. FGG won't mess up that engage out of range of his teammates in EU Masters. So I really want them to clean up the consistency. And honestly, right now, I think their biggest enemy is themselves.
Let's understand how this is going for the second game, but before we talk about that one,